Human beings can live for decades longer than most other mammals of similar size. The current verified human longevity record is 122 years and 164 days, achieved by Jean Calment of France. But one question remains. Is 122 years close to the absolute limit of human life? Or could humans potentially live much longer? To answer that, scientists have to separate two very different ideas: average lifespan and maximum lifespan. Average lifespan describes how long people in a population typically live. Maximum lifespan refers to the oldest age a human can potentially reach under the biological limits of the body. And those limits are much harder to define. Human life expectancy has increased dramatically over the last century. Better sanitation, vaccines, antibiotics, nutrition, safer childbirth, and improved medical care have allowed far more people to survive diseases and injuries that once caused early death. But increasing life expectancy does not necessarily mean that the human body itself has been redesigned to function indefinitely. Once major causes of early death are controlled, another process becomes increasingly important: aging itself. Aging is not a single disease. It is the gradual accumulation of changes that affect cells, tissues, organs, and biological systems. DNA becomes damaged. Some cells stop dividing normally. Proteins can become damaged or misfolded. The immune system changes. Stem cells become less effective. Blood vessels become less flexible. And the body's ability to repair damage gradually declines. These processes interact with one another. Eventually, the accumulated damage makes it increasingly difficult for the body to maintain stable function. That is one reason why extreme old age is so rare. Your body is constantly repairing itself. Every second, cells perform chemical reactions, copy genetic information, produce proteins, remove waste, and respond to damage. This maintenance system is remarkably effective, but it is not perfect. One important problem is cellular damage. Cells can accumulate damage from normal metabolism, environmental exposure, inflammation, and random errors in biological processes. Your body has repair systems that detect and correct some of this damage. But those systems also become less efficient with age. Another important process involves senescent cells. These are cells that have stopped dividing but do not immediately disappear. Some senescent cells release signals that can promote inflammation and affect nearby tissues. The accumulation of these dysfunctional cells is one area researchers are investigating as a possible contributor to aging. Then there are telomeres. Telomeres are protective structures at the ends of chromosomes. They help protect genetic material during cell division. In many human cells, telomeres gradually become shorter as cells divide. When they become critically short, cells may stop dividing or enter a state of cellular senescence. But telomere shortening is only one part of aging. There is no single biological clock controlling the entire human body. Aging is a network of interacting processes. This is where the science becomes uncertain. Some researchers argue that there may be a practical upper boundary somewhere around the human maximum ages already observed. Others argue that there may be no clearly defined biological ceiling. Instead, the probability of surviving decreases dramatically with every additional year. Imagine a system that becomes slightly less reliable as damage accumulates. At 80, a person may still have considerable physiological reserve. At 100, that reserve is often much smaller. At 110, extremely small changes in health can become significant. This creates an important distinction. The question is not simply, how old can a human get? It is, how much damage can the human body continue to repair before its systems begin to fail? That is a much more complicated biological question. Jean Calment remains the oldest person whose age has been reliably documented. She lived to 122 years and 164 days. Her record is important because it demonstrates that the human lifespan can extend beyond 120 years under real-world conditions. But one record does not automatically establish a biological maximum. A maximum requires evidence from many individuals, and that is where the data become extremely sparse. Very few humans survive beyond 110. Even fewer reach 115. And reaching 120 is extraordinarily rare. Because the number of people at these ages is so small, scientists have limited data for determining exactly what happens at the extreme end of human longevity. A person who reaches 110 is sometimes called a supercentenarian. These individuals represent an extremely small fraction of the population. Their rarity is not simply because people die from one particular disease. At extreme ages, multiple biological systems may become vulnerable simultaneously. The heart and blood vessels can deteriorate. The immune system becomes less capable of responding effectively. Muscles become weaker. Kidney and lung function can decline. The brain becomes more vulnerable to neurological disease. The body's ability to recover from stress also decreases. This concept is sometimes described as declining physiological resilience. Resilience means the ability of a biological system to recover after a disturbance. A younger body can often recover from infection, injury, dehydration, or surgery. An extremely old body may have much less reserve. That means an event that would be manageable earlier in life can become life-threatening at extreme ages. This is where speculation needs to be separated from established evidence. There is currently no verified human lifespan of 150 years, and there is no proven treatment capable of extending ordinary human life anywhere near that age. However, researchers are investigating biological mechanisms that might influence aging. These include cellular senescence, inflammation, DNA damage, mitochondrial dysfunction, stem cell decline, and changes in cellular nutrient-sensing pathways. Researchers are also studying animals with unusual longevity. Some species live far longer than expected for their body size. Certain turtles, whales, rodents, and other organisms show biological characteristics associated with unusually slow aging. These species raise an important possibility. Aging is not necessarily controlled by one universal mechanism. Different organisms have evolved different strategies for maintaining their cells and tissues. The challenge is determining whether any of those mechanisms can be safely applied to humans. Aging affects almost every part of the body. That means solving one problem may not solve the others. Suppose scientists develop a treatment that improves the removal of senescent cells. That could potentially improve certain aspects of tissue function, but it would not automatically eliminate DNA mutations. It would not completely restore the immune system. It would not reverse every form of neurological aging, and it would not guarantee that organs could function normally for another 100 years. The human body is an interconnected system. Changing one biological pathway can produce effects somewhere else. This is one reason why extending healthy lifespan is scientifically much more complicated than simply finding a single anti-aging switch. There is another concept that may be even more important than maximum lifespan. It is called health span. Health span is the period of life spent in relatively good health and functional independence. Imagine two people who both live to 110. One remains physically and mentally capable for most of those years. The other spends decades with severe disability. Their lifespans are identical. Their health spans are not. Modern aging research increasingly focuses on extending the years of healthy function rather than simply increasing the final number on the calendar. Because living longer is only one objective. Living longer without a prolonged period of severe biological decline is a much more meaningful challenge. Human maximum lifespan has not increased in the same simple way as average life expectancy. Life expectancy has risen substantially because fewer people die young. But once more people survive into old age, pushing the maximum age higher becomes progressively harder. This creates a phenomenon sometimes described as diminishing returns. The easiest improvements have already produced enormous gains. Preventing infectious diseases can save millions of lives. Treating heart disease can save millions more. But extending the life of someone who is already 110 requires solving a completely different problem. It means addressing the fundamental biological processes of aging. That is a much higher scientific barrier. Scientists do not currently agree on a single exact number. Some statistical analyses have suggested that human mortality patterns at extreme ages may not show an obvious fixed cutoff. Other research suggests that biological deterioration eventually creates a practical limit. The important point is that science has not established a definitive maximum human lifespan. A claim such as humans can never live beyond 125 is stronger than the available evidence allows. But saying humans could easily live to 200 is also unsupported by current evidence. The honest scientific position lies between those extremes. To push human longevity far beyond current records, researchers would likely need to address several fundamental processes at the same time. They would need to improve cellular repair, control harmful inflammation, maintain healthy immune function, prevent or repair accumulated genetic damage, preserve the function of stem cells, protect blood vessels and major organs, maintain brain function, and improve the body's ability to recover from physiological stress. In other words, extreme longevity probably requires more than treating individual diseases. It requires maintaining the entire biological system. The most interesting question may not be whether someone can reach 150. It may be whether scientists can dramatically slow the biological deterioration that normally accompanies aging. If aging could be slowed safely, the consequences would be enormous. Diseases associated with old age could potentially be delayed. People could remain independent for longer. The period of disability could potentially be compressed, and the distinction between lifespan and health span could change dramatically. But these possibilities remain areas of active research. They are not established medical realities. So, how long could a human ever live? The verified human record currently stands at just over 122 years. Beyond that, the evidence becomes increasingly limited. There is no scientifically confirmed number that represents the absolute maximum possible human lifespan. The human body clearly has limits, but science has not yet determined whether those limits create a strict ceiling around the ages already observed, or whether future biological interventions could push that boundary considerably higher. A human living to 150 remains hypothetical. A human living to 200 is even more speculative. And immortality is not supported by current biological evidence. For now, the strongest conclusion is simple. Human lifespan has a limit, but science does not yet know exactly where that limit is. And the future of longevity research may depend less on discovering a magic number, and more on understanding why the human body ages in the first place. Subscribe for more interesting facts about humans, science, and evolution.